My question, Carlo, is, I mean, as somebody who's starting with the property portfolio, what would you advise? Should I start it against myself, or myself and my wife, obviously, because we're married in committee of property, or should we like go the trust route? And what would be the pros and cons of each route? Because the plan is in the next by the end of the year, and I want to have like 4 properties.
Great.
That would be generating a minimum of like 15K for me.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what is important for us to appreciate is that there isn't such a thing as the right structure or the wrong structure.
Yep.
As I shared in the workshop earlier, I actually equally invest in my own name. I invest as a co-shareholder of a PTY Limited, and I do have trusts. When I say a trust, I'm a trustee and a beneficiary of a number of trusts.
Sure, correct.
So it depends on your objectives and your circumstances, and also where you start from,
Yeah, sure.
and where you want to kind of like land.
Okay.
I certainly have a belief and a preference that if you are going to co-invest with other fellow shareholders, with investors and lenders other than call it banks, investing through a PTY gives you a lot of flexibility.
Okay,
It
sure.
gives you a lot of scalability.
Yeah.
Okay, and also gives you readily available tax benefits.
Okay.
So when you are going to invest with people, certainly consider the route of a PTY Limited.
Okay,
When you are going to invest with the purpose of building a legacy for you
Sure.
and for your family,
for my kids,
then a
yeah.
trust
Yeah.
becomes a very suitable sort of like
All right.
strategy.
But it doesn't disadvantage me when applying for the assistance from the for financing from the banking institutions.
Well, as I said, like when I started the journey, I used my own name
Yeah.
to really allow me to borrow as much as I could. So it was a great startup strategy.
Yeah.
But at some point, you're gonna get maxed out
Yeah, sure,
with
'cause
your
you reach your ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, and before then, you gotta start getting ready to make the transition to vehicles that are going to transcend your personal ability to stand as a guarantor and as a kind of like peace of mind for the bank, whereby the business and the assets behind the business become the peace of mind for the lenders for them to lend you money.
Okay.
So it's almost like a trajectory. You might want to start on your own,
Yeah.
then move into a PTY at the same
Yeah.
time, using trust.
Using trust as well. Yeah.
So it depends on how aggressively you want to leverage yourself. I think
right, sure.
the reality is still your ability to leverage in your own name initially tends to be higher than ability
yeah.
to leverage through a PTY or a trust.
because it's a newly registered entity and it doesn't really have any assets
Yeah.
against it and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But as you build up your portfolio, okay.
Yeah,
sure.
but we do go through a lot more detail around the pros, the cons, the tax benefits, the cost, the ongoing cost, the setup
Sure.
costs,
And the
the
administration.
administration, the compliance, the discipline. Because whatever you do, you have to do it right.
Okay, sure. No,
It's very
most
important,
definitely.
and
compliance.
and compliance is a real reality. Is a
Yeah, sure.
reality
Yeah,
of,
sure.
of life. But yeah, hopefully that helps you a little bit.
All right, no.
Okay.
It clears my point.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question here?
Okay, I've been looking at some few possible structures that I can use to try and get additional financing on what I already have. And then I've been thinking about, that's why I asked you earlier whether you go, like with your partners, do you go like 50-50 split straight up, or do you do like some sort of other type of structure? Because I've been seeing some deals where they use these like mezzanine finance. I don't know if you've seen some of the deals where they use these sort of like mezzanine finance type of deals where it's part equity, part loan, and part. That's why I was asking you that as well.
Again, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
I think you gotta look at the more people you have as part of your network, the more people you have as part of your property business, the further you are likely to go. So the old adage is better to have half of something to have the whole lot of nothing, very applicable. Okay? So, it really depends on your circumstances, but I am a great believer in the power of having business partners, because business partners don't only bring money, they bring skills, and also they bring an element of interrogation. Let's say that you are the one that is going to source the deals.
Yeah.
Okay. So having a partner brings an element of call it robust stress test of your deals to say, okay, why are we doing this? What analysis have you done? What calculation have you run? What's your risk analysis? What are the different scenarios? And having that person asking those questions brings great discipline in your thought process, in your financing process, in your sourcing process. So there's an element of non-financial benefit in having a shareholder and a fellow partner in a
as well.
business. Yeah.
I see. It brings about more value to the deal itself. Okay.
4 eyes will always see better than 2 eyes.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And you personally, what's like the biggest deal you've done, like within your portfolio?
I don't do big deals because what is very important is that you must never have a single point of failure. So people get greedy and want to get bigger and bigger and bigger until one deal blows in their hands
And then
and everything implodes. So if you never have a single point of failure, you never have that stress to say if one deal, in the unlikely case a deal goes sour, everything else is still going to be intact. But if you're just going to go massive deal, that deal doesn't work, you're going to start from scratch, and that's going to slow you down. You shouldn't expose yourself to that risk. Do property, take the profit without incurring risks. That's a recipe. Yeah.
And then have you ever had like any tenants that have given you problems, like whether they don't want to pay or they don't want to move out or they...
Initially, when I didn't have the right knowledge and the right education, I did have a few tenants that gave me a bit of a headache, but literally for the last 10 years that has not been the case because I'm very clear on what is the process and the strategy to choose a tenant. I'm very clear what is the process and the strategy to choose a letting agent, to choose a property manager. Once you do that, prevention really is better than cure. And then you'll find that you're not going to have problems. The tenants that are intending not to pay will go to a different landlord. Let them go to the landlord next to you.
Wow.